Well, maybe you're going to start working until 8 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, we have news. Starting later this summer, stores in Laval, Gatineau, and Saint-Georges-de-Beauce will be allowed to stay open until, get this, 8 p.m. on weekends. That is a shift from the usual 5 p.m. closing time. Part of a 12-month pilot project by the Legault government aimed at testing whether longer hours better serve local shoppers and businesses. If it goes well, it could lead to province-wide change. Let's go now to Minister for the Economy, Christopher Skeete, joins us on the line. Chris, how are you?
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm on the road, so sorry if the connection's not great.
No, it's okay. We'll get through this. Now, listen, I'm going to be very honest with you, Christopher, and that is when I saw the headline, I was like, oh, wow, this is great. We're going to have some big change here. It's finally, I said to myself. And then I look at the details, and it's a measly 3 extra hours just on Saturday and Sunday. And I said, all this hoopla over that, it seems like we're just putting barely our pinky toe into the pool. So yeah, why has it been such a difficult, slow progress when it comes to allowing stores to open up later and longer?
You know, it's not easy to talk about business hours in Quebec. We are one of the few jurisdictions that actually closed on Sundays. You remember the whole saga with yellow margarine? Change is not easy in Quebec when it comes to certain things. And, you know, the hours of operation is one of those things that really strikes the imagination and gets people completely inflamed. I've heard some people come out and say that they would rather we close again on Sundays, like back in the La Grande Noirceur. And some people say we should be open 24 hours. So what we're doing with this pilot project is we're opening things up for an extra few hours, in part to prove that the world doesn't stop spinning when we offer more choice to consumers. But also, philosophically, Elias, should the government be deciding what's good for a business and what time they should open? And should the government be deciding when shoppers want to shop? I don't think so. But we need a pilot project to test just that.
So this, you know, and here's the thing, like I hear it, and I've seen your comments on this where, you know, I don't think you believe the government should be involved in when a store decides to be opened, but it seems like we can't make big, bold decisions. You know, the fact that we've got to do, okay, just 3 hours, just in these 3 parts of Quebec, pilot project, and we'll see. And especially from your government, right? You know, like the CAQ, you came into power and you said you're going to do things different. The old way of doing things is gone. And it sort of seems like that promise wasn't kept just by not trying to do big, bold things at times.
Well, you know, I could agree that some people would be frustrated that sometimes things don't go as fast as they would like. I'm often frustrated in a lot of the roles that I carry. So on that, I would say the people that are listening that agree with what you just said, I share that concern. On the other side, is that the hill to die on? Mm-hmm. Do we want social upheaval because we're making changes that are too drastic and that don't go in line with what people's expectations are? In Quebec, we're a balanced people. We're a moderate people. We like doing things in a reasonable way. And so having a pilot project allows us to test that and to show once and for all that, again, the world doesn't stop just because we extended the hours. And I think if we can have a proof of concept that gives us some data that shows that really people are ready for this change, then it's easier to make big, bold decisions afterwards. But you know what? I share that frustration. It is the bane of my existence to try and go fast on certain things. But you know, bridge building is also an important thing to do, Elias, and so I wouldn't underrate that either.
So where's the pushback come from? Like, I mean, is it, you know, on the Sundays, you know, on the Sunday stuff, that's from the church, right? But is it the unions? Where's the pushback?
Special interest, man. Yeah, special interest. These people. There's people out there who, and you know, who like the status quo. So I'll give you an example. Some business associations are saying, "Hey, it's hard for me to find workers, and it's hard for me to have work-life balance. So I don't think we should be open. I think we should close on Sundays." Well, where is it written that being an entrepreneur is easy? I mean, obviously, a lot of the people that are listening to you right now are entrepreneurs. They know it's not easy, and they know that they're competing in a worldwide market that it is open 24 hours. So I'm not sure I buy that argument, but there are those actors out there who say that. On the other side, there's also unions who are worried about workers' rights and work-life balance for people who have hours. But to them, I say, well, we are the government that passed a law protecting workers who are underage, who are still in school. So I don't see why adding more hours, more possibilities to make money is a bad thing. I mean, unions have to remember that without customers, without businesses, there would be no unions. And so for me, I find that these types of pushbacks are often rooted in self-interest. But these are powerful people, and that's why the change is so slow, Elias.
Was there a thought, though, that for this pilot you could be just maybe a little bit bolder, like, for instance, during the week? Like, this is 3 more hours just on Saturday and Sunday. Was there a thought to add on to it? Well, let's do during the week, 11 o'clock at night or midnight, something like that?
To be honest, though, Elias, if we look at regions in Quebec, so there are what we call les zones touristiques. Les zones touristiques are areas where right now, today, they're allowed to be open 24 hours, 7 days a week. I'm thinking of downtown Montreal. I'm thinking of the Old Port. I'm thinking of Old Quebec. These areas are already designated to be exempt of business hours legislation, and they don't open past 6, 7 o'clock on weekends, and they don't open past 9 o'clock on weekdays. So there isn't much demand for that. So yes, we looked at it, but the data tells us that there isn't, people are not clamoring in the streets to try and go to stores at 11 p.m. So that's not something that we thought was relevant. The big friction point that we analyzed was the friction point that occurs at 5 o'clock. We've all been there. We're at the mall. 5 o'clock rolls around, and we're getting kicked out right when we're getting going. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're trying to address with this pilot project, to see really if we can see what people really want, if people are going to be there to shop afterwards.
With Minister for the Economy, Christopher Skeete, we're talking about opening hours of stores with the pilot project set to come in. Do we have a date, by the way, like an exact date on when this starts in Laval, Gatineau, and Saint-Georges-de-Beauce?
Yeah, so why we don't go fast? Well, for me to do this, I have to pre-publish a 45-day warning, letting people know that this is coming. Then there's a consultation period, and if we make a change following the consultation period, there's an extra 2 weeks. So this is at least 45 days away.
Okay.
And that's how we roll. That's how the government works.
Okay, so on dates, though, because I think this is closely related, right? So the restaurants, we did find out today that July 17th, restaurants can finally charge for no-shows, okay? And I think this gets into our discussion here because, I'm just wondering, instead of new rules, new regulations, new pilot projects, why not just get out of the way and just say, you know what, there's no more rules anymore. Restaurants, if you want to charge a no-show, go ahead. If you don't, great. Go do what you want. Do you find this is another example of how we just regulate ourselves to death in Quebec?
So I would agree with you. I worked on that file with the Minister of Justice, who thankfully was very receptive to business needs. When you look around the world, what happens? There's a lot of abuse. I was in Vegas at the beginning of the year for business. We had reserved at a restaurant, and in the end, we couldn't go. And they held on to our money, even though we canceled or tried to cancel 8 hours before the appointment. They charged us $50 per person for a no-show.
Wow.
And so that is abusive. And so when you find certain jurisdictions that have no laws, then you sort of see that people get kind of held hostage. I think we've struck the right balance. We have to develop this, the civility that comes with canceling your reservation. I mean, in Quebec, it was the opposite. People would just reserve in multiple spots, 10, 15 people, and then, today we're going to go for tacos in the end, so you know what, screw everybody else, and they're not calling everybody. And I think that's really unacceptable. And so that's why we chose to act, and that's why the Minister of Justice, who's responsible for l'Office de la protection du consommateur, agreed. So that was really, really good news that we were able to move there. But again, there was a lot of pushback, and it was very difficult to even just move on that.
Listen, I know you're very proud of some of the changes you've brought through, and I'm thinking of the contest, right? Remember how every single contest would never be available in Quebec? Now the laws in Quebec have been changed, and although you see it at times, it's usually because whoever's running the contest isn't aware of the law changes. So I know you're proud that we've made some changes, right? But I do wonder, especially we've got an election coming a year away, and back to what I said before, if you worry that one of the reasons why the CAQ isn't doing that well in the polls and why things don't look good for your party is that you failed on the promise. And when I say you, I mean your party failed on the promise of big, bold change when it comes to business and how we do the old habits of Quebec.
Yeah, I would agree that we could go further. I would remind your audience, however, that 18 months into our election, we had a worldwide first ever pandemic that lasted a year and a half, 2 years, that we had to manage. After that, we had a supply chain crisis, which basically meant that we couldn't get basic parts for our daily living. After that, we had the inflation shock that came with it, and after that, now we're managing a Trump crisis. So I would say, to be fair, that we've done very well considering the unique challenges that we've been faced with. But I also agree that when I speak to my constituents, when I speak to people around Quebec, they do expect us to be more bold, and that's exactly what we hope to do in the next coming months.
Minister Skeete, Christopher, got to leave it there. Thanks so much for hopping on today.
Thanks for having me, Elias. Take care.
Minister for the Economy, Christopher Skeete.